Hello, my name is Dr. Ryan Bates, and I'm an associate faculty member in the Department of General Education. Prior to joining Ashford, I taught undergraduate and graduate level education courses along with high school AP History and interdisciplinary research courses. Today, I'll be presenting my research entitled Using Self-Study to Explore Teaching Practice and Meaning Making of Curriculum. For my presentation, I'll be focusing on how I have used self-study research to develop my teaching practice and how other educators can incorporate self-study research in their practice as well. I will discuss the steps and rationale that I took in my research, along with outlining steps in how you can set up your own self-study. After finishing my dissertation on reconceptualizing secondary world history curriculum, I began to see how my doctoral research could inspire and influence the development of my practice as an AP US history teacher. Through my research, I found numerous academic theories and concepts that I wanted to start introducing into my teaching practice to create a more student-centered learning environment. However, I was having a difficult time determining how to do this because of the oversaturated nature of secondary curriculum due to the standards-based education practices and policy that was expected to follow my classroom, just like many other teachers do across the nation. As a result, I began to question how I could incorporate both my goals for my students along with district and state mandated policies. I wanted to be able to move past this feeling of a deer in the headlights with too much to do with too little time. With this, I focused on two concepts from my initial research: responsive education and critical constructivism. Responsive education looks at how teachers, educators, education professionals can work in and outside the confines of standards-based education. A way to look at this is through my own teaching practice, where I wanted to be able to make sure I met the standards, the policies, the mandates that I and my students are expected to meet and exceed based on district goals, state goals, and federal guidelines. But also I wanted to work outside the confines, the constraints of this standards-based environment and bring in additional critical-based teaching approaches, student learning approaches that would make a more student-centered environment in my classroom. Along with this, I wanted to incorporate more ideas from the concept critical constructivism, where I create a student-centered learning experience where students are constructing their own knowledge and making meaning of it. So they're getting true benefits from their learning, being able to see how what they learn in the classroom can help in other courses, along with once they enter the real world. Within this, I noticed that there was a gap in the research about bridging theory and pedagogy to my teaching practice, and this is from the teacher's point of view, the teacher's perspective. Through research, I gravitated towards the self-study methodology that has developed in teacher education programs and pedagogy. I wanted to see how I could adapt this methodological approach to my practice in secondary education. From this theoretical and methodological foundation, I developed these three research questions to analyze my teaching practice and understanding of curriculum. First, how is the teaching and learning of U.S. history constructed in a veteran secondary teacher's curriculum? So looking at what I'm doing in my classroom with my students. Two, how is the teaching and learning of U.S. history constructed in the redesigned AP U.S. history curriculum framework? So the standards-based education that I will be incorporating into my teaching practice, and that will be guiding my student learning. And third, to what extent do these constructions parallel one another, and in what ways does this inform teacher practice and unit-based planning for the redesigned course? This research was based on my continued development of unit-based planning of curriculum as a result of the redesigned curriculum from College Board that helped guide the development of the 3 AP history courses to not only focus on content, but also to bring in more critical thinking skills. I wanted to see how my teach and practice and curriculum aligned with the new curriculum framework to find space to integrate not only the new framework, but also the new theoretical approaches I discovered in my doctoral research. Based on this, I incorporated 3 methodological approaches to my research study. The first one, critical discourse analysis, was an extension from my dissertation research, where I used CDA to examine various sets of documents, to examine the written, oral communication and language embedded into those documents. So what I was looking at through CDA was the not only the written word, but what was being inferred through the text. So what is the text really telling us to do from a teacher perspective, looking at it from a critical constructivist point of view. The other 2 methodological approaches that I used was self-study and lesson study. Self-study I started to incorporate as a result of learning more about it through my mentor from my dissertation research, along with just additional research that I was doing on my own. Self-study can be a valuable tool for educators where we can learn not only about how we teach, but learn from our practice working with students and become better at what we do. And what I wanted to focus on within that was the lessons and the units that I was creating to inform and frame the student learning going on in my classroom. And within lesson study, you can focus on an object of learning. And so the object of learning was the new curriculum framework and how it would incorporate into my teaching practice from my existing unit-based curriculum. So the 3 sets of documents that I looked at in this study was my curriculum unit plans, the new curriculum framework that outlined the AP US History curriculum from College Board, and third, a teaching journal that I used to record what I did day to day in my classroom, along with observations and anecdotal notes that I could use to further inform my understanding of my teaching practice and the curriculum that I used. 3 major findings came out of my research. First, there was a correlation that existed between the established curriculum of my unit plans along with the new standards framework from College Board. Second, this alignment was loosely constructed. So there were parallels, but each set of documents were running parallel to one another versus being truly integrated. Okay, so this kind of inhibited a true transformation of the curriculum for a student-centered learning experience that I wanted to build off of from my research based on critical constructivism and responsive education. And so as I note in the 3rd bullet point, there were elements of these 2 concepts in the curriculum, but there needs to be more alignment to truly embed these theoretical practices in my day-to-day teaching. So again, trying to merge and marry academic theory to practice. So the significance that came out of this research was there needs to be more attention from the teacher's point of view, the teacher's experience in using academic theory, what they are doing in their classroom on a day-to-day basis, and their understanding of student learning. There is a lot of research that's theoretical in perspective, and there's a lot of research from outside researchers coming into the classroom to see what is going on. What we need more of is the true teacher's experience. So use this as a lens to see how these worlds mesh together, especially within the standards-based environment. Because in the end goal for all this, we want to create more active student engagement in our classrooms, whether that is a traditional brick and mortar classroom or an online classroom like we have here at Ashford. So this gets at the parallels that I see with not only my teaching and learning practice at Ashford, but just teaching and learning in general in online environments. So we really need to look more closely at actualizing the curriculum to meet the academic and professional needs of students in a rapidly evolving global society. So really looking at how the theory informs our practice to actualize the curriculum. And then we also need to think about additional ways to personalize the curriculum based on faculty expertise, based on research that we conduct, based on prior teaching experiences, along with our interests and the student interests. Not only from a personal point of view, but what they like to study academically and what their goals and pursuits are professionally once they leave the virtual halls of Ashford. So with this, I need to refine the research and methodological process in terms of how I use self-study, lesson study, and critical discourse analysis to make true meaning of my curriculum to help move it forward. And then within this, I need to look at how I can do micro case studies to help routinize the application in the curriculum, to help not only look at the ideas of responsive education, but critical constructivism. Look at specific lessons, specific units to see how we can create a more routine application of these academic theories. In terms of creating your own self-study and being able to analyze and research your teaching practice, here are 6 general steps that you can follow to create your own study, to see how and where you can make further developments, further improvements in your teaching practice, wherever you think necessitates further investigation. First, determine the data set. So what are you looking to look at? Is this going to be your discussions? Is this going to look at your assessments? Are you going to look at your teaching practice in terms of how you engage with the students? Are you going to look at how the students engage with each other? So you need to figure out what you're going to analyze. Second, you want to go through that data and code it based on initial categories that you create, or to see what categories emerge from the documents, from the data that you are looking at based on the research questions that you create. Third, identify those patterns in the coding and name those patterns to create themes, to be able to analyze your teaching practice, the curriculum that you are using in your classroom. Fourth, interpret and compare that data based on the research questions. So what is this data really telling us based on the research questions? Fifth, describe these themes based on the data and how they relate to the research questions to help inform the spaces, the areas that we can further refine and develop our teaching and our student learning. And then finally, you would write up these findings and determine next steps in your research process. So really looking at that significance to drive your instruction, to drive the development of the curriculum, and to hopefully develop future research studies where you can further look at other areas of improvement of your practice. So in conclusion, by merging the concepts of responsive education and critical constructivism, teachers, educators, education professionals can create a more integrated teaching and learning experience for our students. Through my approach of looking at responsive constructivism, so merging the ideas of responsive education and critical constructivism, students are becoming more actively engaged in their own construction of knowledge and development of their skills that apply to other areas academically and professionally. Knowledge can then be transformed to work in new environments, new spaces, new capacities. Using self-study with other methodological tools allows for educators to make meaning of their teaching practice and how they will guide the development and enactment of their curriculum that they teach and what the students will learn. I would like to thank you for your time. If you have any additional questions, or if you'd like to further discuss the options for self-studying your teaching practice, please reach out to me. My email is provided. I would love to speak to you about my experiences and also your experiences. In the meantime, here are some sources that I've used to really drive my research and my teaching practice. Some of the resources that were particularly useful are the ones by G and Fairclough, which look at how you can implement critical discourse analysis in your research and your education practice. And then in terms of looking at self-study, if you want to check out the references by Crow, Samaras, and Sinise, they are very well renowned in the self-study community, and they provide a lot of helpful and practical tools and tips on how to incorporate self-study into your teaching practice. Thank you.